All right, good day, good day. In this transmission, we will be discussing how the unconscious, the subconscious, and the physically conscious mind work together and work with belief systems and what their function is. As we have explained previously in other transmissions, your belief system is basically the product of a triad of experiences, the beliefs, the emotions, the thought patterns that create your physical personality and generate your physical experience. But the triad function, the triad structure also exists between your physical conscious mind, physical subconscious mind, and physical unconscious mind. Now, as we again have said before, many people on your planet have thought of the subconscious and unconscious mind as somehow being underneath the conscious mind, below the conscious mind, because you talk about the idea of things being buried deeply in the subconscious or unconscious mind, and therefore it creates the connotation, the implication that these levels are actually under or below or beneath your physically aware daily conscious mind. They are not. They are above it. Because if you understand the idea of the higher mind, which sees everything, which knows everything about the path you are taking, the theme you have chosen to explore, which is the portion of your total consciousness that retains the big view and sees more clearly than the physical mind does what is going on and what is happening and why with respect to the theme that you chose to explore as a physical being, you will understand that because the higher mind knows everything, then the idea of the unconscious mind is also a very large repository of information. You may not always have access to it, but by having the largest repository of information, it is much closer to the idea of the higher mind and thus higher than the physical mind vibrationally, because it contains so much more than the physical mind is capable of handling at any particular moment. Next, the subconscious mind also, in many cases, contains more information than the conscious mind requires for its daily operation, its daily functioning, and thus again is above the physical mind. Again, kind of like not only a repository of more information, but here's the critical key. The subconscious functions between the conscious mind and the unconscious mind as a valve, as a filter, as a processing station between the two, allowing some information from the unconscious mind to come into the subconscious, which then gets processed and filtered in a way that it then can be passed along to, passed down to the conscious mind in whatever form is necessary for the conscious mind to receive that processed information in a way that is relevant and works for what the conscious mind needs to know, needs to realize, needs to experience in its journey of physical reality. So the idea of how these work together is that you have the physical mind, which is experiencing directly the physical idea, the physical journey, the physical experience. And you have the unconscious mind, which is the greater repository of all the information that will ever be needed to be experienced in this lifetime on this theme by the physical mind. But you have in between the two, the subconscious mind, which acts as the processing center, the filtering center, to be able to filter out whatever it is that the physical mind is not ready to handle, not ready to perceive, whatever is not relevant at that moment for the physical mind to know, but which the physical mind can allow to come through if the physical mind will work on belief systems that would be hindering or stopping that information from being presented from the subconscious mind to the physically conscious mind. So the relationship between the three-part belief system and its connection to the three-part consciousness triad is that the belief systems will work more directly with the subconscious mind, or the subconscious mind will work more directly with the belief systems to create the processes necessary to work out whatever it is necessary to be worked out so that the physical mind can more clearly and cleanly experience the themes of its exploration that it chose while in spirit, and thus allow itself to clear out those belief systems, which will allow the subconscious mind to process things more efficiently, to let things through from the unconscious mind more quickly in a more accelerated way, so that there begins to be less barriers, so to speak, less imposed barriers, artificial barriers between the physical conscious, subconscious, and unconscious mind. But while those barriers exist, because of whatever the belief systems say the physical mind does or doesn't wish to experience at that moment, either just through timing or through fear, then the idea is that the more you let go of those fear-based beliefs, then only the timing issues will be what allows the subconscious mind to process information from the unconscious and let it through to the conscious mind in a more timely fashion without being inhibited by any fear-based beliefs that the subconscious mind may be taking its cue from to hold back that information until the physical mind feels that it is absolutely ready to handle the information. You have a very, very, very large repository of information and knowledge in the unconscious mind. And therefore, based on the belief systems that allow you to determine when you are ready to be more of yourself, to explore and expand and be aware of more of who you are, the subconscious mind acts as that brake pedal, so to speak, that allows you to determine with your free will and your willingness to process and let go of your fear-based beliefs exactly when you believe you are ready to handle more information and allow the subconscious to process things more efficiently, more quickly, and allow yourself to receive more information that is being held in the unconscious mind that is representative of much more of the theme that you chose to explore as a physical being. So this is how these three components of consciousness in physical reality work together, kind of like a gas pedal, brake pedal sort of system in trinary fashion, to download whatever information to you you are ready to receive based on how ready you are to know yourself more fully, based on how ready you are to be more aware of the themes you chose to explore, based on how ready you are to let go of those fear-based and limiting beliefs, negatively speaking, and bring them into positive realization. So you are, as the physical mind, in a sense, in the driver's seat with your hands firmly on the controls of what will allow the subconscious mind to bring through, to process through the information from the unconscious that can reveal to you more about who you are in a very inspirational way, giving you much more aha moments in life, as you say, allowing you to know yourself more deeply and to understand more clearly the theme that you chose to explore, which gives you more insight into where you're heading. In a sense, opening up the idea of whatever probable reality futures are more conducive and more in alignment with who you truly prefer to be, and allowing the theme that you chose to explore to be more informative as to what choices you can make more clearly, giving you discernment to understand what is and isn't true for you, and allow you to move forward in life, in your physical reality experience, in a much more joyful way. So this is how these components work together. Ponder this, let it sink in, absorb it, and continue to let go of those fear-based or negative beliefs, only allowing the timing issues to remain so that what is truly relevant for you in this moment, at any moment in the present, to come through efficiently without hindrance, without inhibition, and allow the subconscious and unconscious portions of your consciousness to work more fluidly together with the conscious mind. We thank you for allowing us to share this with you today. And in return, we ask, in what way now may we be of service to you? You may begin with your questions and dialogues if you wish.
Good day, Bashar.
Good day, good day.
I'm here in Encinitas, California, and I have a question. I love everything that you just shared. I feel like the gas pedal has been pushed down pretty accelerated for me lately, and I give a lot of reverence and appreciation to you for the formula. It's been the most influential teaching thus far that has really accelerated my life in such a beautiful way. So I just want to honor you and appreciate all of the beautiful experiences that I feel like you've contributed to my life. So I thank you so much.
All right. Well, we thank you and our deep appreciation for being willing to apply the information to your life.
Yes. And so I mentioned I'm from Encinitas because people have said there's a vortex here. And I'm just curious if you have any feedback or thoughts on that.
There are many vortices everywhere, both great and small, major, minor vortices. There are vortices over the entire structure of your planet because that's how it works energetically. These act as nodal points for the transmission of or the flow of different kinds of energy that take on different qualities depending upon the area. And people gravitate to these areas in particular because of the kind of frequency that exists within those particular nodal points that aid and assist them specifically in their own journeys in life. In the area that you are mentioning, there is a kind of a quickening energy there. Things can go much more rapidly in that area in general than they may in other areas when people need to have a slower experience. They will usually not go to the area that you have named, where if they desire a much more fluid or quicker, more accelerated experience or alignment with themselves, they will usually gravitate to areas such as you have named, of which there are many around the world, but what you have named is one.
Yeah, that's what, and also just the monologue about the gas pedal and the valve. I'd love to talk a little bit more about that because the formula, there's been such amazing synchronicity, but the quickening, the acceleration, the valve feels like it's open more than it ever has been. And I'm having some pretty slippery experiences in my consciousness. And I think that's part of the reason why I'm drawn to this area. And one of which my highest excitement has been with my coaching clients to go on these trips. And it's been pretty consistent. This just started happening where I've been consistently experiencing simultaneous realities for myself and one other person. But now I've been able to create that experience in small groups of coaching groups.
All right. And congratulations.
I'm curious. Go ahead.
Congratulations.
Oh, thank you. So I'm curious about the mechanics of that because one aspect I feel it's like the spontaneity where the energy is just fitting, and I know I know when I'm in that flow, I know what I need to know in the moment. I'll say what I need to say to specific people in specific ways that tend to help, I guess, match energy, if you will. That's what it feels like. But yes. I'm experiencing some pretty interesting things. Not only being able to create scenarios where they're able to experience simultaneous realities undeniably within the group. So the whole group is experiencing it, but also time shifts. So we had an experience in Baja where we went through what we perceived as a time change of 2 hours when there really wasn't one. So I want to hear a little bit more about the mechanics of that.
All right. Well, again, do remember that time is a side effect of your consciousness shifting through parallel realities, as we have said. Therefore, when you expand your consciousness and become more aware of more of who you are that already exists on some level in other realities, then those barriers drop, they fade because they're artificially imposed to begin with anyway. It's just a matter of being on a frequency that by definition includes more awareness of more of the realities that you're already connected to, because every single reality is here and now. Since time and space are illusions, it's all accessible from here, from now, from the moment, from the present. Therefore, the more you expand, the more aware you become of the more that's in the now. Does that make sense?
It does. It feels the presence when I'm extremely present. Not only am I aware of more realities and more awareness of everything, I'm aware of how I'm creating my past and my now, et cetera, et cetera. My past changes quite often.
Yes, because they're all here. You don't go anywhere. The mechanics of it is that because everything exists here and now, all at once, all you have to do is change your frequency to one that is more representative of an expanded awareness to be aware of more of what's already here. You're not going anywhere. You're not, shall we say, literally diving into or projecting into or penetrating into another reality that's somewhere else. Yes, it's usually separated by differences in frequencies, but those frequencies all exist within your consciousness. So when you start dissolving the differences, in a sense, to some degree between one reality idea and another reality idea, you can start experiencing more than one reality idea simultaneously when your consciousness is capable of handling that.
I love that you said that because it does feel like it's dissolving. It actually literally almost, it's my senses feel that it is a dissolving of somewhat feel. I don't know if it's barriers or if it's just illusions, but
it's the same thing. That's the same thing. Barriers are illusions. That's what we're saying. There is only one thing in existence, and therefore anything that you consider to be a different thing is an illusion and is created by the artificial barriers, which is differences in frequencies that are created within your consciousness in order to have a certain experience where you feel that it is necessary to experience differences within the one homogeneous thing. So barriers are illusions.
Yeah, I got that. Thank you. And so more about the fun of it, it's just been such a fluid, extremely, it's just been amazing. It's such a fun, exhilarating experience. And my question to you is the spontaneity. So it feels like I'm fitting the energy, but it's kind of part of me, what level I'm creating it from. I understand that the higher mind is the mirror that's reflecting. But the physical mind is sometimes, a little bit tricky in that I can feel the physical mind wanting to label or explain. And so that's becoming less and less.
All right. Well, that's fine. Again, the idea is you get to determine what labels need to remain for your own purposes and what labels you can let go of. It's up to you to determine how it works for you. So there's no right or wrong way in that particular process. Go with your flow and see what works. Keep whatever labels work and let go of whatever labels you no longer need.
Thank you, Bashar. So the last part of this segment I wanted to discuss is the whale. So my highest excitement has always been my connection and my excitement with dolphins and whales, and recently with the gray whales and the humpbacks specifically. And then out of that, we came across a hybrid of a fin and a blue whale in Laredo. And that was quite interesting because he made himself very visible to us, over 80 sightings in a very short amount of time. I wanted to see if you had anything to say about that.
The hybrids are coming closer.
Yeah.
You will see more examples. You will see more examples in your reality of things that are hybridized to indicate the changes going on. They will start more deeply within your collective consciousness or perhaps your collective unconsciousness, thus representative of the whale, which represents a larger consciousness, showing you more clearly that more hybridization is happening in the non-physical realm, which then translates into the deeper collective unconscious of your people before it also starts trickling down, as you say, into the collective subconscious and the collective consciousness of your people to start recognizing that hybridization is part and parcel of the evolution of humanity on the earth.
I love how you just tied that into the unconscious and subconscious. And then we did have an experience recently with an entity in the physical. I've asked before because I've had an experience as well. And it feels potentially like a Yael. I wanted to get maybe your validation, not that I need it, but it's always fun to hear.
I cannot give you validation of that at this time.
Okay, Bashar, I love you so much. Thank you. I appreciate
Our unconditional love to you as well. Good day.
Good day.
Hello, Bashar. So I've been wondering about, I know how we switch Earths billions of times per second, right? I was wondering how this affects us in our sleep. Does sleep affect the Earth that we wake up in? Do we wake up in the same Earth that we went to sleep in? Does what we do in our sleep, our consciousness, the dreams that we have affect which Earth we wake up in any way? That's it. Thank you.
Yes, you never wake up in the same reality. Since you're shifting billions of times a second, even while you're awake, you're never in the same reality. And sleep allows you to do several different things, because when you're out of body, you can go to the template level of the physical reality and make different kinds of choices and changes within relevance to the theme you chose to explore. And you can do things in a slightly different way, but you are never in the same reality. But yes, sleep can affect the reality you wake up in. Not that you are not always in a new reality, but it can be a slightly different reality than you might otherwise have woken up in had you remained awake.
Hello, Bashar. I hope
Good
you
day.
have a wonderful day.
Of course, always.
This is my first time meeting you, so I'm very excited.
All right, so are we.
So one of the questions I have is children, when they're young, often tend to see beings when it's nighttime and they are supposed to go to bed and sleep,
Yeah.
and the lights are out, and
Yes.
is there an ability that children have to see things that are like in a different dimension or reality or something?
Yes, because they haven't unlearned that yet, because they're not fully focused yet on the idea of physical reality as the only thing that they should pay attention to. Children are still newly from spirit and still retain the ability to see into other dimensions. It's natural for most children. So the idea is that many children on your planet will learn to stop doing that, although now in this day and age, they don't have to really learn that. They don't have to focus quite so strongly on the idea that there is only physical reality. They can still experience the themes they chose to explore as physical beings without necessarily losing the ability to perceive beings from other dimensions. So this is something that is new for your society in general on a large scale. People on your planet have always had this ability from time to time, but it used to be rare. Now it's becoming more common. But yes, in general, children on your planet are still closer to spirit than they are to physical reality, and for quite some time may still retain the ability to see into other dimensions until, for some reason, if there is a reason for them to focus only on their physical theme, then they may close that facility down for a while. And then it may return later in life when they are through exploring certain things. But yes, it's a natural ability that most children have.
And is there a way to facilitate the coming back of this ability?
Yes, to follow the formula that we have shared with all of you.
Okay. Okay.
Now, there are also many other techniques. Basically, you can attract through synchronicity whatever technique may work for you. Whatever permission slip will be best aligned for your vibration. But in general, those things will also arrive in your life if you do, in fact, follow the formula. It happens automatically.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
At some point, I was laying in my bed and seeing a dark pattern on the ceiling, and I was a kid back then, and I was kind of fearing for my life because I didn't know what it was, but I was like almost paralyzed, and then I said, no, not now, and please leave, but I didn't know what it was, and this happened twice to me when I was a kid, but I still have no idea what it meant or what
It's a portal to another reality and a beginning of a visitation of extra-dimensional or extraterrestrial beings coming in to interact with you according to the agreements that you have made in this life to be part of those kinds of encounters and experiences. So what you were initially experiencing was the opening of a portal from one dimension to another.
Okay. And is there something I can do to maybe get back to that point? So now that I know I don't have to be afraid about it.
Don't be afraid. And again, follow the formula. Be more open to investigating and researching the encounters that exist between extra-dimensional and human people on your planet. Educate yourself to know that you're part of a bigger program, a bigger agenda for the evolution of the earth, for the evolution of humanity. Invite it in and feel love for the experience. Most importantly, allow yourself to fill yourself with love and create the invitation on your own terms, saying that it can be what works for you and what works for others, but always in a state of unconditional love and service.
Okay, I'll try that.
All right.
Okay, when I was in school, I had dreams. That was like the first years of school, so I did not lose the stuff apparently until then. So when I was in school, I had dreams at night where I saw things that would happen a day or two later.
Yes.
And I actually made a game out of this, because when I went into like a conversation with people and I knew what they would say, I just changed my reply and see what would happen. And this was funny for me.
Yes. Well, again, everything exists now. All realities exist now. What you call past, present, and future are all here. And there are multiple versions of everything. So if you have expanded your consciousness, again, especially when you are younger, and made a game out of it, which is a positive thing to do, then it can help practice and train you to be able to perceive more realities that exist in the here and now moment. And thus you can perhaps perceive more clearly the probabilities of which reality will manifest or crystallize in your particular physical world experience. So that's not unusual. It's just that you're becoming more aware that every reality, every probable reality that is most likely to manifest is already known to you, is already here and already exists. It's just a matter of which way you choose to go and how strongly you choose to crystallize the realities that you're perceiving.
Okay. And I guess...
Did that make sense to you? Do you understand what we're saying?
Yes.
All right.
I guess getting back to that is also following the formula.
Everything is contained in following the formula as precisely as possible. It leaves absolutely nothing important or relevant out of your life. It will bring you what you need exactly when you need it.
Okay. All right. I was in October 2011, I was in a group that did C5 protocols for contacting extraterrestrials.
Yes.
And we had some contact with, we saw ships flying around, and we had high strangeness events or things that happened that were strange.
All right. Well, congratulations.
Thank you. And when we did a meditation for contacting extraterrestrials, it was like a vision in my head that I had from it was a woman, and she looked more like a cat being, a feline woman. And she looked at me, and it was like just a second or so, and she said, "Be patient." And that's all I got from this. And then I started to think and woke up from the meditation.
All right. Well, that's good. That's a good first start. Coming through the extra-dimensional consciousness is coming through an archetypal form, an ancient Egyptian form that connects to something that will work for you. The ancient Egyptian archetypal form, looking feline, is called Bastet or Bast, the ancient Egyptian goddess. So this is an archetypal form that the extra-dimensional being was using that has relevance for the vibration of your own being. And initiating a contact and telling you to not be impatient, basically, is a good first step. Things will unfold as they need to.
Okay.
You can do the meditation again anytime you wish. You can begin practicing, strengthening that contact.
Okay.
It's up to you.
Is there a specific, like, I guess it would be
whatever works for you, or replicate what you did before.
Okay. 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 So when sometimes I hear stories about people getting abducted.
Yes.
And what I was wondering is, when they talk about it, the first contact or initial contact is a bit scary for them.
Yes, because they don't understand what's going on, because they haven't been told that these kinds of things are happening by an agreement you made before this life. This is part of the evolutionary path of humanity on the earth. And because most people aren't in touch with those agreements, then they will go into fear mode or survival mode, because what is being experienced is very foreign to them. And to the physical consciousness almost seems life-threatening, because it's so different, so alien to your normal physical reality on earth. There is nothing to be afraid of, but nevertheless, the physical mind may still react that way by going into survival mode, because interacting with another dimension changes your frequency, and to the physical mind that almost feels like a death. Even though it is a type of death, it is not literally physical death. But the physical mind may interpret it as such and kind of go into a little bit of a panic.
Okay.
But you can get used to it, and this is what we talked about earlier. Open up in the idea of love. Express the idea, as you have already done, that you want it to be on your own terms in a comfortable way, and that you are willing to participate and be more aware of what's going on if more awareness is allowed on their part. So approach it that way, and things can smooth out. Does that help?
Yes. Thank you.
Then I will wish you pleasant dreams.
Thank you.
Good day.
Hi Bashar, I have this idea. It's pretty raw, but I would love to hear your position regarding this. So I heard recently scientists talking about anti-energy, as in something that keeps existence expanding, as in something that could keep the wormhole open. And it resonated with me because I feel the same way when I clear a limiting belief back to zero, when I clear it back as in reverse to a place where it never existed. I feel that there is a huge expansion going on inside of me. And I felt that we can do something, we can return something to zero, thus creating this anti-energy inside of us and thus creating a real expansion. Is it possible to absolutely reverse the limiting belief, to bring it to zero as if it never existed? And does that create a real expansion? I would love to hear your opinion. Thank you.
Yes. And what you're referring to scientifically is what scientists call dark energy rather than anti-energy, although it has what you might call an anti-property, since it works in an opposite function from what you'd consider to be regular energy. But you see, you're doing this all the time. You're zeroing out every moment. This is what happens when you shift billions of times per second from one reality to another to create the illusion of space and time. You're actually zeroing out every moment and allowing the thing that existed in another reality to simply not exist or ever have existed in your reality. It doesn't mean it doesn't exist at all. It just means that it never existed in the new reality that you've created, but it still exists in other realities that are simply no longer being experienced by you. So you're zeroing out all the time. But however you wish to look at it, however you wish to frame it, however you wish to use that process, is up to you to create the permission slip that works for your particular perspective and your particular expression of consciousness. So yes, the short answer is yes, it can be used that way.
Greetings, Bashar.
Good day.
Hi. I'm excited to talk to you about a few things.
Yes.
I've often pondered your sharing about Earth people assisting those on other planets in their awakening process.
Yes.
During my life, I've had experiences in the dream state on starships, so it is a topic that's very exciting to me. And I would like for you, if you are willing, to speak further about how that will unfold individually for people that are interested in experiencing that in the future.
Yes. Well, you will function as a kind of a vanguard for bringing humanity into the greater awareness of the fact that you're interacting with many beings already on that level, that you are part of a galactic family on different extra-dimensional levels. But all of this must, as we just said with the last person, begin to be realized in a way that allows it to trickle down into physical reality as an experience as well. But many people are establishing footholds and connections and links to other beings in other realities, on other planets, and so on and so forth, to establish a network and a connection and a relationship between the humanity of Earth and the beings of other worlds as well. So if you are part and parcel of that kind of an adventure, we thank you for your service in that way, and it will help accelerate the ability of people to choose to awaken to the probability that they can become physically part of a larger galactic family that they've already become part of on an astral level.
Thank you. That's so exciting. And
Yes.
your answer also ties into my next question. What does a human being have to do to transcend death and achieve immortality in the physical body?
Have a reason for doing so, because in general, there's not a reason for doing so, because you have themes that you're exploring. And when you get to the end of that theme, you can change to another theme while still physical, but most people actually enjoy the break in between of going into spirit to have more opportunities, more probabilities to choose from, and they may decide that they would actually rather do something else other than remain physical. So the idea of being physically immortal, while it's not impossible, is relatively unlikely just because of the various things that there are to choose from that might actually be more exciting. Now, many people on your planet can be much more long physically lived. That's fine. It's just that most people will actually not choose physical immortality unless there is a really good reason to do so. But generally speaking, people will find that the reasons they might choose to be immortal are actually better served by actually going back into spirit.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I would enjoy having you tell us something new, lofty, exciting in our probable near future that we can focus on to assist in bringing it to full manifestation.
There will be an increase in sightings of what you call UFOs in the years to come, in the next decade at the most, leading up to the idea of solidifying the open window of contact. So look for more sightings, listen for reports of more sightings, and listen for the ones in particular. One moment. Listen for the ones in particular that seem to appear in areas that are connected to the concept of conflict, and see what that does to the people in the area witnessing those craft. That is all we are allowed to say.
Much appreciated.
Our appreciation to you as well.
Thank you.
Good day.
Good day.
Hello, Bashar. Thank you for taking my question. So I have a twin sister, and I am curious about what is, other than us sort of having the same DNA, what is unique about that may be different from other siblings that perhaps we can tap into or better connect with, or if there's any other significance to just, we have the same DNA. All right. I love you, Bashar. Thank you so much. Bye.
There is always a slight difference in the DNA, which is what makes you a different person than your twin, and vice versa. But that difference doesn't appear to be significant in the way that you gauge these things at this point in your science. Twins have exhibited, as many of you know, certain kinds of telepathic or psychic bonds because the similarity in your physical structure creates an ease to some degree, not that every twin takes advantage of this, but creates an ease to some degree of creating a similar vibration. Remember, telepathy or telempathy is the result of being on the same wavelength as someone else and having the same thoughts at the same time. You're not actually reading their mind, you're reading your own mind because you're on a similar wavelength, and thus on that frequency, you can only have certain thoughts that are germane to that frequency. So being a twin can enhance the idea of telepathy between you because you're already physiologically so similar that the vibrational difference between you isn't so great that you can't easily get into sync with one another and have the same thoughts at the same time. That's one advantage of twinness. At the same time, there is a polar opposite to this idea. It allows you as seemingly, and I say this loosely, seemingly the same person or a similar person to have different experiences and different vantage points that you can share with one another. So it would be like saying, well, what if I did this instead of that? So twins can actually allow you to follow two different paths and two different themes, but as an extension of the same oversoul, as if, well, what if I live that life instead of this life? And what if I live that life instead of this life? And then compare notes as if you had lived two lives simultaneously from the oversoul's perspective. Good day, good day.
Great day to you, Bashar. How are you?
Perfect, and you?
You're welcome. So to begin, I wanted to, I've been studying the Abraham teachings.
Yes.
And a lot of times they'll ask their questioners, do you believe that you're vibration and energy? And I can't ever say yes to that. So I was hoping that you might aid me in getting to know how I can get my mind to know that everything is made of vibration and energy, including me, like my mind knows how to pick up a pencil.
Well, have you studied even your own physical, scientific quantum mechanics?
I've tried, but it just goes over my head.
Well, take your time. But the idea in general is that everything is about resonance. Everything is about frequency. That's how you differentiate. Let's start at the beginning. Do you understand the concept that there is simply one unbroken, homogeneous existence?
I don't know. I'm sorry.
All right. Let me put it even more simply. Do you believe in cake?
Yes.
You're familiar with cake?
Cake, yes, that you eat?
Yes, cake.
Yes, yes.
Now, if somebody gave you a slice of cake and asked you, can you analyze, however you wish to, under a microscope or whatever, what the ingredients are that went into creating that slice of cake? Are you with me so far?
Yes, yes.
Does that seem like a thing that is relatively simple to do?
To analyze it all? No, not go under a microscope, probably yes.
All right, thank you. And let's say you do that and you find, well, there is milk in here, and there are eggs in here, and there is flour in here, and there is chocolate in here, and there is sugar in here. And you find all these things and break it all down to those particular individual ingredients. Yes?
Yes.
You're with me so far?
Yes.
All right. Each of those things are made of atoms. Yes?
Yes.
You understand that? Yes?
Yes.
Well, what makes sugar different from chocolate?
I don't know.
Sure you do. It's made of a different arrangement of atoms, is it not?
Okay. I'll go with that.
Can you
Yes.
follow that? Yes?
Yes. Yes.
All
yes.
right. So a different arrangement of atoms is similar to the idea of a different frequency. It gives off a different vibration because it's a different arrangement of things. Just like red is electromagnetic energy, the same electromagnetic energy as blue, but it's operating on a different frequency that your senses perceive as what you call a different color. Are you with me?
Yes.
All right. So it's really no more complicated than that. One material from another is a different arrangement of certain things that you call atoms. One color from another is simply a different frequency, in much the same way that when you watch your television, you're watching one program and then you switch to a different program. Well, why don't those two programs interfere with one another? How can you see one clearly and then another that's different clearly without interference from the one you were watching a moment ago? It's all about a different frequency. It's like teeth interleaving between one another instead of trying to get into the same space at the same time. So that's all that's meant by different frequencies, different resonances, is just about whatever the material is, and you don't have to know what it is, that existence is made of, has different patterns of frequency and vibration, different ideas within it that create different experiences. And that's what creates everything, is those imposition of different patterns, different frequencies, different vibrations that allows you to perceive something as being different from something else, even though it's all made of the same thing. Is this helping?
Yes. Thank you.
That's
Thank
all
you.
there is to it.
Okay. I appreciate that.
Make sense?
Yes.
Oh,
And the last thing I wanted to talk about was the ego.
Yes.
How can I've done the practices that you've talked about, like with writing a contract in order to get the ego to stop wanting to be so dominant in everything.
Yes.
And as I've been practicing the law of attraction with the Abrahams, it still seems to keep wanting to know the how of everything, so that dominant thought kind of overrides the other dominant thoughts I've had. How can I go about? Yeah.
That's because you have a definition of that makes you think that it will actually help you, when in fact it will actually hurt you. So the idea is that when the ego thinks it needs to know all how the mechanisms work and how this and what's going to happen and all the details, it's actually, shall we say, making itself more opaque to what's going on. It's actually slowing the process down by doing that. It's actually assuming it knows what the best outcome actually is when it doesn't. If you actually start relaxing that and give a different definition to that idea as something that would actually work against you and not allow you to move forward as quickly as you might like and not give you the actual best outcome, then once you associate that idea, that definition to the process, you will stop doing it, because you will realize that the ego simply has no capacity to know what the best outcome is, or that it really needs to know how things work, and that all these things are working towards slowing the process down and making things actually more murky for you.
Okay, so having a stubborn mind or a stubborn ego, is that a common thing that people have?
The stubbornness, again, stubbornness comes from a definition that is out of alignment with who you truly are. So in other words, you're defining the stubbornness as it's got to happen this way or something will go wrong. You have to realize that that's just a story that your negative beliefs are telling you. You have to stop believing in that story.
So it's more about my beliefs, not my ego actually doing it.
It's always about your beliefs, because your beliefs color what your ego is capable of expressing itself to do.
Okay.
So go into the beliefs and say, stubbornness is just an insistence that if I let go of doing it this way, something worse will happen. That's a belief that the negative belief is trying to get you to buy into, so you won't let it go. This is how beliefs perpetuate themselves. The negative ones will use fear to perpetuate themselves. It's not malicious. It's just how they're structured, because if beliefs, both positive and negative and neutral, don't have a way of perpetuating themselves, then you can't have a physical reality experience, because physical reality isn't real. It's only the product of what you believe to be true. It's only the product of your focus. So the idea of buying into a negative belief, if you happen to have bought into it to begin with, is that the negative belief is going to continue to try and perpetuate itself by feeding you more negative fear-based beliefs, so you won't let it go. You have to understand that what it's telling you is not a fact. It's just a story to perpetuate itself, and that you can change the story and everything will be fine.
Gotcha.
Does that help?
Right. It does. Yeah. Thank you so much. And I hope you have a great day. And
so welcome.
Thank you so much for your time. Bye.
Always.
All right. Thank you. Bye.
Hello, Bashar. The other day I was reading some channeled material from the Arcturian Council, where they were describing that we are here to experience the ultimate experience of knowing ourselves from finite beings to infinite beings. And, you know, that's cool, but it just seems like I feel like I have this perspective that, you know, we're just kind of like bored as high dimensional entities, and we kind of just want to, you know, play a game to, experience ourselves as separate. And, to me that just seems like we're just like guinea pigs. I don't know. So I'm kind of just, at a loss with trying to figure out why we're even doing this. Please and thank you.
You are your own guinea pig. You're not anyone else's guinea pig, and you're not bored as higher entities. You simply see the excitement and the value and advantage of doing things in different ways according to what's possible in existence. So don't necessarily have to bring boredom into it. You don't have to bring the idea of victimhood into it by referring to yourself as a guinea pig. If you are a guinea pig, you're your own guinea pig. So sometimes you might decide it's going to be very exciting to go into a particular reality so you can pig out in a different way.
Hi there. Thank you, Bashar, for taking my call.
It is our pleasure and our passion to do so. What would you like to discuss?
I'm curious about, since consciousness takes place at the subconscious, and unconscious level, is this unique to the human experience, or do others as well, other species, have those three forms of consciousness?
There are a few that do, but of course they can still experience them in a very different way. So it's not absolutely unique to humanity. What is relatively unique, although again not absolutely so, with Earth humans, is the degree to which they allow the fear-based beliefs to color the functionality of the subconscious mind.
I see. That being said, I do notice that when we go into the dream state, it seems like we open up to a higher aspect of consciousness.
Yes.
I'm presuming, since you've mentioned that your species woke up in the dream.
Yes.
So my question is, as we try to expand our consciousness, how can we maintain what some experiences, out-of-body experiences while we sleep, so that we could become more cognizant and retain a memory of our sleep?
Where it is relevant to do so, you can do so. It might not always be relevant to do so because you might be doing many things out of body that aren't necessarily relevant to what you're doing when you're physical. So don't necessarily insist that you have to remember everything. But if you open up to the idea of allowing yourself to be more lucid and let the physical and the non-physical become more common in the sense of being more alike than not alike, relax the definitions that there is such a great difference between physical and non-physical, because physical reality is just a different type of dream. So the more lucid you become in physical reality, the more lucid and aware you will become of non-physical reality, because you're not imposing such a separation or barrier between the two, because they are just different aspects of one thing. Because remember, you never really leave spirit. You're just dreaming that you've left spirit. So the more you allow yourself to relax the definitions of difference between physical and non-physical reality, the more you will remember whatever is relevant for you to remember when you are, quote unquote, out of body. Does that help?
Yes, it does. And to that end, I find it kind of synchronistic that we're dealing with a species that doesn't use memory in the same way that we do.
Yes.
And yet we're going through an experience of coming into incarnation with no memory.
Well, some of you, not all of you. Many of you do have memory.
Is it also part of the expansion to be able to recall, to bring forth the memories?
In general, yes. But again, it depends on what's relevant for the theme that you chose to explore. It's not necessarily relevant for everyone to do it that way, but it is becoming more generally possible and probable with the children being born on your planet over the last few decades, yes.
So along those lines, I could develop it if I chose that theme, because I feel like I'm exploring consciousness as a theme, and to that end, I seem to have woken up to some of the clairaudience experiences, yes. And it's like when I leave the dream state, I wake up hearing conversations ensue or take place that apparently I'm doing while I'm dreaming.
Yes, all right. So again, that may be part of the process of creating more similarity between physical and non-physical reality for you by crossing that divide, by allowing conversations and awareness to cross that divide and start leaking into your physical reality from the non-physical one.
I was also curious if if I had an experience in 2008 where I actually have a recollection of being on board a ship, but I don't know who those beings are. Would it be possible? Would you be able to determine that?
Well, most likely you're dealing again with grays and hybrids because that's the typical people you will be dealing with regard to those memories of being aboard ships. It doesn't mean that there aren't other beings there from time to time as well, like the mantis and so on and so forth. But in general, it will mostly be the grays and the hybrids. Sometimes you'll get the things like tall whites and other kinds of beings that have references and familiarity to some people on your planet. But again, generally, hybrids and grays.
And so when those exchanges occur, are we in some form of astral where, we meet halfway from where they're at?
Usually, not always, but usually. Sometimes there is actually an altered physical reality in which you still are kind of physical, but not exactly in the same physical reality that you consider to be your physical reality when you're, quote unquote, awake.
I see.
It can just be a shift into a parallel reality that is very similar to yours, but also contains qualities of the astral realm.
I see. All right. And so I also do recollect having an experience being out of body when I was in the hospital in a certain case. At that time, I had a being actually, I think, assist me in coming out of body because I was dealing with a lot of pain.
Yes, that's not uncommon. It's not uncommon to have your guides or other beings help in those situations. Yes.
I found it fascinating because when I got out of the body, the being was actually looking at me above the hospital bed. And so I could see myself and I could see the being, but he wasn't looking at me in the bed. He was looking at me directly where I was out of body.
Yes, because you were more in that being's reality at that point. The body in that sense was in another reality that is not necessarily as relevant to that being.
And so once again, I guess, unless it's part of my theme, those memories of what took place when that took place seem to elude me.
It's all right. Again, you remember enough at the moment. Take the energy, take the experiences, and move forward in your exploration. Don't necessarily think that you always need to look back.
Great. Wonderful.
All right.
Sounds great. I appreciate the time, and I wish you unconditional love and gratitude for your service.
Unconditional love to you as well for yours.
Thank you.
Good day.
Good day.
And pleasant dreams.
Hello, Bashar. So when I was about 5 years old, I had a contact experience, a brief experience with a gray in the middle of the night. As I was walking into my bedroom, through the bedroom window, I could see the gray sitting in a school desk that was right outside the window and had his arms on the top and was turning his head to look at me. And I have thought over the years that perhaps the school desk had some type of significance or connection to the fact that I was meant to teach, or that was my passion. And I have taught and have done a lot with education and coaching and things like that. I've sort of dabbled in some of that more recently. And I've learned over the years what's my passion, what's not my passion. It is ever evolving, as I think it should. But I'm just curious if there was significance to the way that the gray approached me sitting in the school desk, or if it was just a way to approach a small child and not be so maybe scary as to just show up standing up in the same room. I love you, Bashar. Thank you so much.
Well, both. Not only about the idea of teaching, but also about the idea of learning and letting you know that when you are asleep and out of body, you are attending different classes on different levels of dimensionality in ethereal or astral planes, learning different things that you need to learn in order to teach different things on the earth to aid and assist in the evolution of humanity. But yes, to make it simple for a child to understand and to not be scared as well.
Hello, Bashar.
Good day.
My name is Sarah. I'm currently in California, and I have a question about transforming the Orion energy of oppression as it relates to my uterus or womb.
All right.
when I began connecting to the hybrid children, a game happened where I would imagine them as tiny babies and I would pop them in my womb and I would flow love to them. And it was a fun permission slip.
Yes.
I thought it might be fun for them in case they hadn't had that experience. And it's fun for me because I've been careful not to have human children because Earth is a little nuts.
Yes, we understand.
So where it got interesting was in Matters of the Heart, you said we could flow unconditional love to those in darkness. And I began to imagine even violent adults as tiny babies, and I would pop them into my womb so they could experience the unconditional love that I feel for the hybrid children. And this feels like a powerful permission slip for me. I've been able to unconditionally love anyone and everyone. So I want to understand it better. My question is,
what's to understand?
How can we use the idea of womb energy to experience personal expansion instead of oppression right now?
Well, aren't you doing it?
I am, yes, but I'm wondering how the past oppression relates to the progress we're making of transforming that oppression into freedom.
Well, again, by offering that kind of a permission slip and allowing yourself to become active in doing so, along with physical acts out in the world of service, you are at least providing the energy to the world that gives everyone the opportunity to choose something that will allow them to transform the idea of past oppression. So you are flooding, with that permission slip technique, flooding into the world a vibration that turns the entire world into that kind of a womb experience where people can go back into their child selves and re-educate themselves and realign themselves from that energy going forward to grow into adults that have nothing to do with the idea of the oppressive energy of the past. Does that answer your question?
It does. Thank you, Bashar. I am very grateful for you.
Our gratitude to you as well. Is that it?
Yes.
All right, then. Good day.
Good day.
Hello, Tadeo.
Nania.
We have lots of questions from our viewers.
All right.
Okay, the first one. Is there a way to unite the unconscious and the subconscious minds with the conscious mind so that we can be consciously aware of all three? And would there be an advantage to our physical experience that way?
As long as you are physical, you will not completely dissolve all three, but you can allow them to work more efficiently together and mirror the physical version of a higher mind. But while you are physical, all three are somewhat necessary so that you can experience timing and processing of whatever information your conscious mind truly needs at any given moment. So there will always be some slight holdback, some slight process of funneling the information that's necessary at any given moment through. But yes, you can allow, by accelerating yourself, by raising your frequency, the barriers to become less solid so that they can work together, all three divisions can work together much more efficiently, much more fluidly.
Okay. And this person says, I'm interested in why we are specifically among all the other options for who or what we could be as a unique expression. So I guess why we are who we are. How is it possible for us to have preferences if we all come from unconditional love?
Because it is unconditional by the very definition of the word, you can be whatever you choose to be. Therefore, you choose whatever theme of exploration at any given moment your consciousness believes will allow it to experience what it needs for its own growth, whatever it is interested in, exploring in that sense. So you have the freedom to choose whatever you wish.
Do we have the option of choosing to come to Earth to do negative things?
you do have that option. But again, remember that when you say negative, a lot of times you will choose negative mechanisms to do positive things. For example, the idea that you are limiting your consciousness in order to have a physical experience is a positive utilization of a negative mechanism, because you are imposing a limitation for various positive reasons, for experiential reasons, on your broader consciousness. So yes, in the way that you meant the question, it is possible that you may see that someone doing something that would be considered to be negative could inspire others to act positively and perhaps change things in a more positive direction by having something negative to push against.
Is there an optimal way to meditate? And is there like a best length? And is 10 minutes just as effective as 1 hour? Or?
Not necessarily. It takes about 15 minutes for the neurological pathways of your brain to rewire themselves effectively in a lasting way. So the idea of whatever form of meditation you are attracted to would be the best thing for you, the best permission slip. And we would say optimally, allow yourself at least 15 minutes. You can go for longer. You can go for an hour. Again, it depends upon how you decide to adjust it that works best for you. But at the very minimum, 15 minutes is usually required for most physical individuals to allow for the appropriate amount of rewiring of the brain to be effective in terms of making the changes that you typically seek to make.
Okay, thank you. Following up from the guilt and responsibility transmission, is guilt always an indication that there is an energy alignment necessary, or can that mechanism get out of whack a bit? Is it possible for us to have a habit of unnecessarily being guilty when we feel guilty about things that we don't even need to really be adjusted about? And if so, how can we know the difference and clean up the confusion and the energy alignment mechanism can work as intended?
The sensation you call guilt, that you recognize as guilt, is always an indication that there is a misalignment within you or a negative belief at work. Otherwise, it's just awareness and recognition of something. It doesn't necessarily have an experience of guilt attached to it if you're just aware of something from a neutral position. The idea of being guilty when you know you have no need to be guilty in that sense is one of the results of actually giving in to the negative definition, the negative belief system, because again, it keeps attempting to perpetuate itself and thus continues to perpetuate the guilty feeling even when you intellectually know there's no reason for you to experience guilt. So that is simply a residual side effect of, or an echo, if you will, of having given in to the idea of the negative and fear-based belief that creates the initial guilt feeling to begin with. The idea, again, is to recognize that it comes from a fear-based belief, to explore and investigate yourself with honesty about what that belief could be, and truly get to the core understanding of what the fear-based belief is telling you as a story, to allow yourself to really see the details in that story and recognize that they are generally nonsensical when you get to the heart of the matter. That is how you can dissolve any reason to keep perpetuating the idea of guilt and allow yourself to let that go.
So as an example, survivor guilt, is there a way to transmute that? Or is that happening at such a deep level? And it seems a little different than normal guilt.
It is not. It is not different, because it still is the result of harboring a negative belief that you could have done something, and in some senses it robs other individuals who may have passed on of their choices. So to be guilty about the fact that you are still alive while someone else may have died is, again, nonsensical, because you are not allowing yourself or allowing them to have made their choices from a higher level. You're not trusting the timing of what's going on. Now, this doesn't mean that The idea of what causes the death cannot be mitigated, cannot be changed in the future for other people. But the idea of whatever it is that does happen, even if it results in someone else's death, must simply be recognized as the result of belief systems or themes or choices that they have made, even unconsciously. And to be guilty about being someone who remains alive, in some sense, dishonors the choices that they made, instead of utilizing those to make differences in your own life and in your own understanding about your connection to those who have passed on into spirit. So survivor guilt, again, is simply a residual recognition of the fact that you've been holding on to fear-based beliefs and negative beliefs about your own worthiness to be alive, about the choices you are making. And it can be used in a positive way to correct anything that might have been a misunderstanding, a misinterpretation, or a miscalculation in your own life. But the idea of holding on to the guilt does not allow you to move forward, nor does it allow you to develop a recognizable relationship with those who have passed on in a way that can serve you and in a way that honors them for their choices.
You talk sometimes about how there are consequences to our choices and actions. Yeah. How can we hear the word consequences so that we don't perceive it in a negative or punitive way? Sometimes I fear consequences catching up with me from past mistakes, even though I've already healed, learned from them, and brought myself back into alignment. How can I release that fear and work with this teaching in a more positive way?
There's an oxymoron in the question you have asked, because if you have actually healed yourself and brought yourself back into alignment, there would not be the definition of consequences in a punitive manner. So when you say that you are still experiencing a punitive definition of a simple neutral consequence of an action taken, then you're not in alignment. You have not brought yourself back into alignment. There is still a fear-based belief at the heart of your experience. But look at it this way. A consequence is simply the neutral result of an action taken. Let us say, for example, you simply drop a ceramic cup. The consequence of dropping it may be that it actually shatters on the floor. Is the shattering on the floor a punishment? No. It is just the neutral consequences of having dropped the cup in a gravitational field. The fact that you would say, oh, I am being punished now because the cup shattered, is simply the result of a nonsensical negative belief system. So by recognizing the nonsense in the idea of defining something that is simply the neutral result of an action taken, but keeping upon it the idea of self-judgment, then you can more easily separate the concept of punitive definitions from a neutral consequence.
Can you tell us the best way to follow the higher mind? How can we trust and understand its messages? And is it possible to follow the messages of the higher mind without first working with the shadows of the subconscious mind?
Again, this is a slight misunderstanding of the formula that we have shared with all of you. Following your passion is what allows you to determine what to let go of so that you can more readily follow the higher mind's guidance, which comes to you through passion. Remember, the toolkit that is contained when you act on your passion contains the reflective mirror that brings to your attention the idea of any belief within you that is out of alignment with your true vibration. So by acting on your passion and allowing the ideas to come up that may be out of alignment and working with it to let it go, you actually give yourself more ability to have more discernment and deal with these ideas of negative belief systems more easily in the future. So it is the very act of following your passion that brings these things to your attention, because bringing these things to your attention is part of your passion.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Does listening to subliminal messages or a recording of affirmations while you sleep in order to tap into your subconscious mind have any benefit to us in creating the experiences we prefer? Can it expedite us raising our vibration to match the experiences we prefer to have, as having good health or abundance or money? Or is it just another permission slip that will work for some and not for others? Does the subconscious mind need a permission slip?
Yes, it is a permission slip, because everything in physical reality is a permission slip. Will it work for some and not for others? Yes. Is it effective for some? Yes, because it is a permission slip that they've gravitated to, been attracted to, and it is the attraction that usually indicates it will work for the person who is attracted to use that particular permission slip. So in that sense, it is a simple answer of knowing that it is something you are attracted to, that at least will temporarily work for you while you are attracted to it, and can be effective for those that align with it in terms of their belief system. But it's up to you to recognize also that it may change for you. So go with the flow. Whatever it is you're attracted to as a permission slip, by all means use it for the length of time you are attracted to it. When you're no longer attracted to use it, you'll find that something else will work for you. That's part of your evolutionary growth.
Can you mention some of the ways that our higher mind communicates with us?
It communicates primarily through, again, the sensation of objects or situations and circumstances that contain more excitement and passion or attractiveness or curiosity than any other. And it amplifies these things and delivers them quite often through the auspices of the fact that everything is connected, meaning synchronicity.
Right, so synchronistic symbols would also be communications from the higher mind?
Yes.
And when we have a negative belief, does that mean that we should ask ourselves why we have it and try to eliminate that belief by waiting for an answer that doesn't make any sense to us? Or is there other...
Well, you're not waiting. It's an active process of self-investigation to allow yourself to render the belief nonsensical. It doesn't just happen on its own, because if you don't do anything about it, if you don't investigate it, if you don't look deeply within yourself with honesty and curiosity and a willingness to change, then the negative belief will simply keep perpetuating itself. So it's not about waiting for it to make no sense. It's about actively seeking ways and understanding ways in which it simply no longer makes sense to you. One way is to look around in your reality, on your planet, and see if there's someone doing something similar in their passion as to what you would find also passionate about, exciting about doing, and recognize what it is that's different between you that allows them to do it, but not you. It is in that difference you will find the difference in your definitions, and then perhaps it will stand out more clearly why the definition for you is nonsensical, because if they can do it, why can't you?
So are the beliefs in the unconscious mind or the subconscious mind, these negative beliefs?
They're in the conscious mind, sometimes in the subconscious mind or unconscious mind, but they actually originate within the conscious mind, because the idea of those negative beliefs is not natural to your greater being. It's things that are learned and ingrained within you in the conscious world, in the conscious reality. Again, either by your circumstances and situations, your parents, your friends, your schooling, your society. These are all introduced into the conscious mind. Aspects of these then beliefs, negative beliefs, filter into your subconscious and unconscious mind when you are given perhaps contradictory information that you don't know how to process, don't know how to handle. So you store them in the subconscious and unconscious mind to be released later when you might gain enough information and knowledge and experience to be able to understand them at that point, bring them back into the conscious mind to determine for yourself at that point what it is that's nonsensical and irrelevant for you and what it is you determine you will keep believing in. So again, the subconscious and unconscious mind are used as different types of reservoirs to hold on to things you can't immediately process. But all of these negative beliefs are, in a sense, received by the conscious mind. Now, the only exception to this, and it's not really an exception, but just an augmentation, would be that if you have decided as a spirit to come into the reality with a certain theme you will explore, then you might allow the conscious mind to be, shall we say, more open to receiving some of these negative and fear-based beliefs that you will then use in your process to overcome and, shall we say, transform, so that you can fulfill the theme that you chose to explore. But the fear-based beliefs are still received by the conscious mind, even though you make, shall we say, set up a likelihood of accepting them from a higher level to begin with, as a representation of a theme that you will choose to explore.
Can you comment on the idea of compartmentalization and how that can shield one from the consequences of negative beliefs?
Compartmentalization, because you operate it in a physical reality that has time and space and can have time lags and so on and so forth, can be used as a certain vibrational pattern to, in a sense, act as a filtering system so that you can achieve certain things on one level while holding off on certain kinds of consequences on another level. In other words, you're storing everything for later dissemination, for later analyzation, for later observation. And this is why when you pass into spirit, you cannot avoid the idea of life review, where you experience the consequences of every action that you took. Because now in that state of being, non-physically, you have dissolved all of the barriers. There is no more conscious, subconscious, and unconscious. It's all right there in one awareness. And thus, at that point, if not at any point earlier, you will experience every single idea, every single consequence, every single action, every single emotion, everything you may have put into the reservoir for later analysis will come flooding in during the life review if you do not deal with them in the physical reality at some point.
Can you say a little more about how you actually experience life review? I think one questioner was concerned about going through it, that it seems fearful or like
you
a
will not
terrible
experience
experience.
it in a fearful way. You will understand through a form of spiritual empathy what it is that any other person that may have been affected by a choice you made would have felt, would have experienced. But I know this sounds like a little bit of a contradiction or an oxymoron, but you experience all these things from a neutral position. You experience them fully as if it's happening to you, but since there is absolutely no judgment on it from the spiritual perspective, you are not experiencing any of the things you would heap upon yourself in physical reality, such as judgment for having done it. And therefore, while you can experience it in its fullest form, you do not actually experience the judgment that would amplify it in a negative way. Therefore, there is nothing to fear. It is simply absorbed as information and knowledge and experience and used in a positive way to determine what you will do next and how you will grow from those things, how you will learn from those things. I know this may not be absolutely clear to you, since most of you are absolutely not used to experiencing any lack of judgment at all on the things you do, on the negative ideas, on the negative fear-based beliefs. But by eliminating the idea of self-judgment, you simply can experience a full emotional experience of what someone else may have experienced in physical reality, but without the judgment, it is not experienced in any way, shape, or form that is fear-inducing.
So back to the idea of compartmentalization, an individual that's capable of compartmentalizing and then doing harm to thousands of people through negative acts and worldwide consequences for their behavior.
Yes.
When they go on this planet, you can experience those kinds of things, and yet when you go through life review, the idea of the karma or the punishment,
It's not karma.
None of that is going to happen, right?
You will experience the consequence of everything you did, and you will experience it from the points of view of every single person that was engaged or involved or affected in some way, shape, or form. You will experience it all as if it's happening to you, each and every individual, and not even immediately, but even those that have repercussions and ripples that extend sometimes for days, months, weeks, years, and centuries. you'll experience every single consequence and ripple effect that came as a result of the choices that you made. So it's not that you escape it, but you don't experience it as a punishment. You experience it as an experience.
Interesting. Wow. Okay. And regarding working with the subconscious, hypnosis has been a method used to explore it and assist medically. Is it beneficial, and can we improve our method and use, and how?
Again, like previous questions, it can be beneficial for those individuals that are attracted to use that particular permission slip. It can be very effective for many of you because it does help the majority of people in the collective idea of the themes you are exploring to unlock from any particular reality concept that you may be holding on to and truly be capable of letting it go. So it can be an effective permission slip because it taps into the collective unconscious of your reality and the themes that the collective may have agreed to explore, and lets you, in many cases, be relatively fluid with them or free of them. So yes, but it's still nonetheless a permission slip. And again, it can be more effective the more you understand how it can be a skeleton key of sorts to unlock every different kind of lock that may be experienced in your life. But again, it's up to the individual to decide whether or not that's something that they will gravitate to, that they are attracted to. Remember that you're hypnotizing yourself all the time anyway to believe certain things that aren't necessarily real, at least temporarily so. So all of you, in that sense, in order to have a physical reality, are under the influence of different types of hypnosis.
Okay, and is the subconscious mind like a doorway to the higher consciousness? Is the subconscious part of the mind or the higher self?
It's part of the mind, but it is the part, again, that acts as a go-between between the physical conscious mind and the unconscious mind to determine exactly what portions of information that reside in the unconscious mind and the higher self the physical mind is ready to process. So it acts as a kind of a gatekeeper, the subconscious mind, to let through whatever the conscious mind feels it is ready to deal with in terms of facing different belief systems and processing them and letting the negative ones go. So, of course, everything is a reflection of what the higher mind chose to experience, but it is a specific part that acts as a gatekeeper for what the conscious mind is ready to deal with.
Okay, and what, if any, impact do things like autism, ADD, and things like that have on the triunal structure and the way our belief systems are formed?
I'm going to put this very simply. The effect that those kinds of situations or conditions have is to either make the subconscious mind more or less open to bringing through certain ideas in a very specific way. So in other words, the subconscious mind may now be relegated to bringing only certain things through, but bringing them through more fully than it ever would for a quote unquote typical trilateral conscious mind. So it depends upon what, again, the theme of exploration is, what this spirit or soul has decided to experience, and how it will use the subconscious mind as a gateway to bring through those specific things that are relevant for the experience that you are calling autism or those other conditions you have named. So it's like having the subconscious mind have a way of doing slightly different kinds of duties, slightly different kinds of filtering or not filtering, depending upon the theme that is being explored by that particular consciousness.
And with multiple personality disorder, is that a mental issue or is it a spiritual issue?
Well, it can be both, because again, remember, as above, so below. So there can be affectations in the mental consciousness that will allow for that particular being to experience those things that may originate in a other dimensional or spiritual nature. But the idea fundamentally, and again, not for every case, but fundamentally, is that an individual is tapping into multiple parallel realities, multiple versions of themselves, without necessarily having the filtering system or the control system imposed upon it that would allow them to function in an orderly fashion, communicating with one another in a way that still allows the individual to function, quote unquote, normally in your reality. So it's a type of tapping into multiple dimensions, multiple parallel realities without the ability to focus in any one particular one in an effective way, but again, can be done for a variety of reasons that may be personal to that particular consciousness experiencing that.
So is the person tapping into multiple spirits and having them all share one body, or?
No, it's not the sharing in the body, but it's an expression through the body, if that's what you mean by that. They don't all reside in the body per se, but the body can function as a reflector or a mirror for different versions of spirit and consciousness and physical beings in other parallel realities temporarily. So again, sort of like your telephone analogy, you can have different friends speak to you through the same phone, but it's not like they're inhabiting the phone. It's like the idea is that the phone and your body is a device that can, based on its frequency, allow different voices and different experiences to come through temporarily.
So is creativity from the higher mind, the subconscious mind, or the unconscious mind?
It is mostly from the higher mind, although there can be versions of it that filter into the unconscious and subconscious and even the conscious mind in the form of inspiration. But as we said, the idea is that the higher mind is the conceiver. The brain is the receiver, and the physical conscious mind is the perceiver. So what you're calling creativity is a conception that originates in the higher mind, in the higher self, and filters down in whatever ways are relevant through the unconscious, subconscious, and into the conscious mind in ways that allow the conscious mind, the conscious being, the personality to be creative. But all of that comes from source and therefore filters down, so to speak, through the higher mind to the conscious mind, the triune conscious mind.
How does that relate to the higher mind, to the oversoul, to the higher, to the unconscious, subconscious? I notice there's confusion often.
All right. Again, without going into too much detail and too many layers and levels, because you can create a number of them anyway for various purposes. Of course, everything starts with all that is source. It all comes from that. It's all an expression of that. But it goes down into different levels of oversoul, whether you want to say it's a universal oversoul or a galactic oversoul or a solar system oversoul or a planetary oversoul is relatively arbitrary. But it goes from the oversoul level into the individual soul level. And then the individual soul creates the idea of the non-physical higher mind and the triune physical mind. Then through the experiences of the physical mind, you create the concept of the unique spirit that is germane and unique to that particular physical experience. And that becomes part of the soul. But the idea, again, is that it usually goes from oversoul to higher mind, to unconscious to subconscious to conscious mind, that then through its experience creates a representative spirit that is a unique representation of the experience of that particular personality that then resides in the soul and the oversoul and all that is from that point forward, speaking linearly.
Awesome. Mind filtering UFOs. Are there does the unconscious and subconscious minds that are responsible for filtering out things filter out UFOs, fairies, elementals, other beings from the conscious mind and limit what it can receive? And if so, is it being due to negative beliefs or is it for other reasons?
Both. It can be for fear-based beliefs that it's doing that filtering. It can be something that the conscious mind believes it's not ready for. That would cause upset and imbalance within it to perceive those things because of its theme of exploration. And it can also simply be that the being is not ready in timing for the idea. and it simply can be outside the theme of exploration. But again, there are limitations there that are dissolving. You are becoming more aware that these beings exist, that these forms of consciousness exist, that there are ET beings, that there are extra dimensional beings, that there are elemental beings, there are different aspects of consciousness that are connected to your planet in a variety of levels. And therefore, it's really simply a matter of when it's the appropriate timing for you to allow and open up and dissolve the barriers between the conscious, subconscious, and unconscious minds to the degree where they can perceive more in the conscious mind of what is all around it all the time. The unconscious mind is always aware of these things, just as the higher mind is. But again, it's a reservoir that holds these things back, because the subconscious mind determines from the belief system of the conscious mind what the conscious mind is ready to perceive and experience and interact with based on the theme of exploration and the belief systems that exist at that moment.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Okay, you've said that to access the subconscious mind, unconscious mind, and so on, that we have to raise our vibration.
Yes.
But how do we know that we are in that state? How do we know that we've accessed the subconscious or the unconscious mind? And do you have a tip to achieve the most frequent type of vibration needed to access the subconscious and the unconscious?
Last question first. Follow the formula, because
Right.
it leaves nothing relevant out and raises your vibration when you're acting on your passion. And the question, how do we know when we're there, will become obvious when you actually have raised your vibration. To ask the question means the vibration is not high enough. When you are in the high enough frequency, that question will no longer be relevant, and it will be exactly apparent what level you're on, what vibrational state you're in. So raising your vibration will eliminate the need to ask a question, when am I in that vibration? How do I know when I'm in that vibration? It's a self-canceling idea.
Is there a frequency level that you can mention that you would need to be at in order to receive that information?
It may be slightly different for everyone, but in general, it usually happens for most humans on your planet when you have achieved something above 180,000 cycles per second.
So if you're in the channeling state, so to speak, or, you know, you're following your passion, so you're in that state, there's different levels of excitement and full consciousness commitment to the experience, because maybe things are running in the background, etc.
Let me correct that.
Okay.
There are different expressions of excitement, but there aren't different levels of excitement. Excitement is excitement. Passion is passion. It can express itself in different ways, and there can be different vibrational states to those expressions, but the raw core idea of passion or excitement is a pure vibrational state without different levels in it. That's the point we're making, is that when you're actually functioning more holistically in the vibration of passion and excitement, the idea of much of the so-called confusion about what level you're on disappears, because by definition, what comes with that is a complete recognition by definition of exactly what pure state you're in.
Okay, so I know that a lot of people, after they experience you and the communications from you, they feel a deep sense of inspiration and excitement about their lives and what they can do.
Yes.
Comparing that to, say, someone who loves to paint, but while they're painting, they're thinking about the bills they have to pay or something like that.
Even though they're not in their passion. They're not in their passion at that moment.
So you would be able to feel that inspired sense that we can feel after interacting with you. That would be a true indication of that higher frequency, yes?
Yes, stay there.
Okay.
No matter what you have to think of. The idea is, again, you must remember that this all happens in perfect timing. There will be a time when, if it is important for you to ponder the idea of a bill, it will come in the form that is still part of your passion. It won't be a distraction. It won't be a less than experience. It won't distract you from the passion of the moment. You'll find the right time to be passionate about the idea of paying a bill if that is something that is truly necessary as part of your passion. So these things come in pure form. They don't obstruct each other. They don't interact in a way that is destructive to one another. It still allows you to come in a form in perfect timing that allows you to experience each and every one of those things in its pure, exciting form. Again, this is an issue of perfect timing.
Okay. And you've talked a lot about memories and how we create our memories from the present, and
yes.
also how we can change the past by shifting our frequency.
Yes.
So how does that relate to other people that are in our lives if their memories aren't aligned with ours because we've shifted frequencies and shifted the planet that we're on? How does that synchronize between the people in our lives and what we remember and what they think is true?
Well, again, as we have said, for a while, you are agreeing to play the game of continuing to be aware of people that have made different choices and are experiencing different things. You're allowing that to be part of your game for a while. Eventually, you won't. Eventually, there will be no, shall we say, disagreement on the overall picture of what you're experiencing when you have shifted to the version of Earth where everyone is relatively harmonious and in sync with one another. But for now, for the purpose of experiencing process and for the purpose of still giving yourself the opportunity to change your mind and make different choices, you have agreed, even during your shifting, to shift to versions of Earth where you're still aware that there are different choices you could make that may not be relevant or in alignment with what you prefer. That's part of the choice you're making for now, to give everyone a chance to make their choices, to see in you different experiences they could choose for themselves, and for you to see in them different ideas you could choose for yourself. That's part of the game you're playing, even while shifting to different versions of Earth.
So what kind of a timeline are we looking at with this in terms of when you would experience Earth and be experiencing people having similar memories to you?
Of course, it will vary from individual to individual, but again, we could say that the overall bubble would probably be about 50 of your years.
Okay, and so for those individuals who may not live for another 50 years, they would just experience varying degrees of that?
Yes. Again, it will be per individual. Some may go on ahead. Some may lag behind. There may be an average to it. So you can't just say it's true for everyone, but we're giving you an overall average for the collective of your reality, barring the exceptions, about 50 years, or everyone that you perceive in the version of Earth you're in to seem relatively harmonious to whatever idea, relatively in sync to whatever idea you're experiencing, whether it's positive or negative.
This question has to do with suicide. And the person is asking, are either of these statements true? Someone who commits suicide will usually come back in physical form more quickly than someone who has died of natural causes.
You want me to answer that one first?
Sure.
All right. Generally, that seems to appear to be the case, but only because when a person arrives in spirit, they may realize very rapidly that that wasn't necessarily the choice they initially would have made, and they wish to finish the theme that they chose to explore. So they will look for an opportunity to do so in physical reality. Now, that's not necessarily true for everyone. Some may continue their theme of exploration much later, or in a different dimension, or even as a non-physical being. But in general, when you make a choice to experience a certain thing from the spirit level to begin with, linearly speaking, you usually want to stick to it and finish the job. So many times people that commit suicide will suddenly awaken to the fact that they did make a choice initially that was very important to them, and they will usually look for an opportunity to go back into the situation, at least something similar, so they can finish the theme they chose to explore relatively quickly, linearly speaking. So on average, in general, yes, there's validity to that, but it's not absolutely true for everyone.
Okay. And also, is this statement true? A being could get stuck in a dimension if they commit suicide.
No. They may think they're stuck. They may create an experience of being stuck for a while, but again, only because of the belief systems they may have brought in with them. Eventually that will dissolve because they have help from physical reality for those individuals who are sensitive to such things, and they have help from their spirit guides in non-physical reality as well. So they can have the experience of being stuck, but they're never actually stuck. That's just an illusion.
Okay, and also the idea that if someone is terminally ill and they are in great suffering and they choose to have assisted, suicide, I suppose,
Yes.
Does that come with the same idea of what you were saying in the first question?
No, not necessarily. Again, as always, you can't make a general concept true for everyone. It depends on the reasons they're doing it. It depends on why they have attracted that situation to begin with. But in general, in the way you're asking the question, no.
Okay, great. So there are, there's legitimate reasons for quote unquote suicide.
Well, again,
and then,
remember, all death is suicide because mostly you have determined the window of your lifespan.
And then basically the choice of how you exit is something having to do with opportunity, but it may also have to do with the other people that are involved in your life, etc.
Yes. Again, you have to take it, as always, on a case-by-case, person-by-person basis to see why someone has chosen what they have chosen and why they're experiencing it in that way. But in answering the question generally, the answer is generally no. It's not the same as if you commit suicide through the idea of desperation or fear.
You mentioned sometime that there are spirits that rematerialize into physical form on Earth. What is the longest time a spirit has remained physical on Earth after dying, and was this spirit human, animal, or plant?
I'm not allowed to tell you about that at this particular point.
Okay. All right. And you've said that cats communicate with elementals.
Very often, yeah.
When do cats learn to speak to elementals? Is it instinctive from birth? Are there telltale signs when the cat is doing that? And what is the conversation usually about?
It is instinctive from birth. You can usually tell, though not always, when they focus on something that you say isn't there, that you can't see, but they seem very attentive in a particular direction. Now, that's not always the case. They might be looking at something you just can't see with your own eyes. That is still in physical reality because they have very sharp senses. But again, it can look similar. They can be engaged with something that you can't see, and you can tell they're engaged with something by their focus, their head motions, and body language, and so on and so forth. Very often, though not always the case, what it's about is something that either has to do with the cat and its relationship to you, or it has to do with things that the cat can experience when it's out of body and the cat's life in general or specific terms. But a lot of it will usually have to do with things that are going on in the life of the human and the cat and the relationship between them and how that might progress and evolve to including the elemental in some way, shape, or form that can be of assistance to the lives of the humans and the cats, and other animals participate in this as well. It's not just cats. But they do have a strong proclivity for this kind of activity.
Okay. What sort of mind structures do plants have, and how different is it from mammals? Do they ever dream, reflect, or use archetypes to communicate like humans do?
Absolutely, they do, but we're not going to go into a deep explanation now, but they have a difference in the way that they experience those things. It's a different form of reflectivity. It's a different experience of an archetypal connection. But we will go into that at some other point in more detail. But yes, they have all those things. just different.
Do you want to comment at all on this cryptid that is called Dogman?
Not at this time.
Okay, and from your point of view, what is the relationship between power animals and sacred plants, as in shamanism, and humans? Who are they, and how can we develop a stronger and healthier connection with them?
Sacred animals are animals. Sacred plants are plants. Every plant has a sacred aspect. Every animal has a sacred aspect. Every human has a sacred aspect. It's more about the level from which the shaman is experiencing a relationship with those animals, those plants, or those other people. Because coming from a higher level, a shaman can see and perceive different levels of those beings, no matter what they are. So it's more about the idea of the sacred level that exists in all things being more perceivable to the shaman, because the shaman has evolved to the level where they're interacting not just with the typical physical representations, but with the higher dimensions and levels of spirit of those animals and plants and humans and other things as well.
Okay. Thank you. Are there tones, pineal tones, that help with balancing our mind and also could have other effects with the pineal gland?
Yes, and we will discuss this concept at another time as well, but the short answer is yes.
Okay. Okay, so on to some ET Galactic type questions that we have.
Yeah.
If someone passes to the other side of a black hole, what will they see?
Depends on the black hole, because there can be black holes that are tunnels to other points in space-time. There can be black holes that are portals to other realities, other universes altogether. It depends on the type of black hole.
So these sounds, I think they just recently came up with a recording of the sound of a black hole. Was that accurate?
The sound, in a sense, is a reconstruction of the idea of the perturbations that exist within the space-time field as you recognize it in your terms. So it's the fluctuations in the space-time field, the gravitational fields, the fields of consciousness that are being interpreted in your terms to create a sound as you understand sound. What you're basically hearing is a representation of fluctuations in space-time.
And what would happen if a person went to the end of the universe and left it? What would they see? I know it's going to be vary, but...
Again, you're assuming, first of all, there is an end,
right,
in the classic sense, to the universe, but we understand the context of the question. It depends. Again, you might see another universe. You might not even know you've crossed from one to another. The end may be apparent and it may not be. It just depends. Again, this requires a deeper conversation, but the general answer is it depends.
Okay. And are there any spacefaring ETs who are basically life-size animated plants?
In a sense, yes. You would perceive them in that way. You would perceive them to be plant life, although they would be a little bit different than what you perceive on Earth as plant life. But yes, there are those extraterrestrial beings that do appear to possess more qualities you would attribute to the concept of plants.
What about situations where someone has taken something that elevates their frequency, some sort of hallucinogenic or plant-based idea, and they experience things like communication with DNA and things like that? Yes. Is that basically similar to the idea of interacting with a plant type consciousness that is an extraterrestrial?
Well, yes, because it can be a reflection of dealing with the consciousness of a plant that is terrestrial and therefore may cross into the idea of communication with an extraterrestrial type plant as well.
So they can deliver information from that microscopic level in a sense also.
Possibly.
Okay, and why do extraterrestrial crafts have light? You know, lights on them. Are they a device for attracting our attention and raising our awareness, or do they serve a purpose?
Well, there are many levels to that. Many craft have lights in the same way that your cars have lights. Remember, it's dark out in space. Therefore, the lights help to identify what's there. But a lot of the so-called lights are not lights as you understand them. They're expressions of energy. So they can be representative of many different things that are not necessarily physical lights in the way you understand the technology. It may be the manipulation of energy that has a light as a side effect.
Okay, and will there be people who immigrate to Essassani, and how would that work in the Interstellar Alliance?
Eventually, there may be those that will come to live on different planets relatively permanently, yes. In the future, when you are a full-fledged member of the Interstellar Alliance, that is a common thing for individuals to do as long as the planet can support their form of life. Just like you would go to live in another country. There is nothing mysterious about this.
At the present time, though, individuals who are experiencing Essassani would basically be doing it in dream time in that form.
In their astral form, yes. Eventually, it can be physical. There are humans who have been taken to other planets physically. We're not going to go into detail about a lot of that right now. But there are humans who do reside on other planets. It's rare, but it has happened.
And are there subterranean intelligences living alongside humans on this planet?
There are some. That doesn't mean there's a hollow earth in your dimension. But there are some subterranean beings that do exist on your planet simultaneously with you. There are not many. Mostly those that you would consider to be other civilizations, subterranean, are in other dimensions that just appear to be inside your planet. But there are a few physical beings that do live in subterranean enclaves on your planet that you are not necessarily aware of. Yes.
How prevalent is it that there are ships in the oceans?
Do you mean extraterrestrial craft?
Yes. Oh, sorry. Yes, of course.
It's relatively common because there are bases under the oceans, under the ocean floors, and are visited quite often by various extraterrestrial crafts, just as there are bases that are also underground on land and bases on your moon and Mars.
Are there a number of bases on the, within the Hawaiian Islands?
There are a couple. All right, a few.
Can I ask about a specific location?
If you wish. Doesn't mean I'll answer you.
Okay. Kealakekua Bay?
Nearby.
There have been sightings there.
Nearby.
Nearby.
Nearby. Not in it, but nearby.
Okay. Are the beings responsible for creating our species and our scientific level of intelligence also responsible for the nuclear weapons that this intelligence has produced?
If you're referring to the idea of the Anunnaki, they did have a science that was understood by some that did allow for the development of nuclear devices. They didn't provide them, though, if that's what you're asking.
Okay. And did the Sasquatch interact heavily with the Conestoga people, who are also known as the Susquehannock, found on the Susquehannock River? And if so, modern people believe this culture is extinct because of conflict in the 1700s. Did some of them travel with Sasquatch to other dimensions?
Yes. And that's all we will say about that.
Okay. And are ancient Egypt giants Anunnaki?
Some of them certainly have a lot of Anunnaki blood. They are mostly ancient Atlanteans that have a lot of Anunnaki blood, many of which still existed on Earth in the late periods after the destruction, the third phase of destruction of Atlantis, and became known as the Anunnage. You can look them up. Anunnage, Anannage, Anunnage, which is a corruption of Anunnaki. But many of these are ancient Atlanteans who survived and went to different areas on your planet that had a lot of Anunnaki blood.
Okay, and this is a question about the U.S. congressional hearings on the UFOs.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, does that foreshadow a change in the collective energy leading to the beginning of the open window of contact?
It does, of course, even though not much information actually was offered in that meeting. The fact that it is recognized as a public meeting that professes to take the subject seriously is a step forward in the evolution of contact. Yes, of course.
And this person is saying, I read that the U.S. government or military doesn't want to admit UFOs are from outer space and friendly because then there would be no need to have huge budgets to protect ourselves against them. Is that accurate or?
Yes. In general, yes. There are exceptions, but yes.
And in the news this week, there was also a picture of a doorway on planet Mars. And is that picture true?
No comment.
Okay. All right. And there'll be a device in the future that will help access the unconscious mind and discover our negative beliefs. Can you tell us what kind of a device that would be?
It will be an AI device.
And is it connected with the internet? Because you've talked about how we would be able to talk with our higher minds through the internet. I guess it's sort of a representation of that idea.
It's not the internet as you know it, but it will be something similar.
Okay, and can you tell us something about advances in health and medicine, what they might look like that would help us continue to evolve and move towards greater and greater open contact?
Eventually, it will all be based on the understanding of resonance and frequency of energy.
So eventually, will we be able to like regrow limbs or
Yes.
restore senses?
Yes.
All of those things.
Yes.
And will it be through the use of AI? Because right now we already see that happening where
Partly, yes. It can be aided by AI, yes. But it has to do with frequency and resonance.
Okay. And lastly, this one says the cultural belief that change is created through rage, rejection, and punishment seems to be gaining momentum, at least in our society and maybe even worldwide. And can you help us understand what an individual can do to shift that so that we have a more smooth progression to our evolved future? Or is this whole period of quote unquote negativity that the world seems to be going through just part of our growth process to get us to that
on how
place?
you use it. As we have said, you're getting everything out on the table because it's the end of the cycle. You're shifting into a new cycle. You have to be able to see every possible choice and every possible opportunity to be a living example of better choices, of more positive choices, without necessarily needing anyone to choose them. But the idea is to be a living example of that. That's how you can help. But remember, again, you're never going to change the planet you're on. You're going to shift to another version of Earth that will be more and more reflective of the changes you make within yourself. But being a living example through the actions that you take that are more representative of a positive reality will allow those who are inclined to do so to also choose and match those frequencies in a more positive way. But again, the idea is unless you see all of the negativity, you won't know what choices necessarily there are to make or not make. So you're getting it all out on the table. So you give yourself the freedom to choose what you truly prefer and leave behind what you truly do not.
And for those that are concerned about nuclear in the current situations that are happening, you've mentioned that full-out nuclear war would not be allowed to happen on this planet because of the effect that it would have in other dimensions, etc.
Yes.
Correct?
Yes, but limited nuclear strikes we cannot necessarily prevent.
So if there's a limited nuclear strike that then turns into a full-out exchange, is that like if there was a limited nuclear strike and then someone retaliated in a limited way, would that qualify as being allowed to happen, or would it only be that it would be stopped at that point?
We would gauge the ultimate effect of any reaction and determine whether or not it would reach the level where it would interfere with other dimensions. It will be allowed as long as it does not cross over into other realities that are not yours. As soon as it reaches the level where it would do so, it would be stopped.
Okay. And just in keeping with the idea that there are things happening on our planet that are very challenging for all of us, or a lot of us.
Yes.
In terms of a positive way to look at the war and what is happening, what is our best method for doing that?
Not instruct you in that. You have made this too political, and we are not allowed into your politics that deeply. We would simply say, once again, look for those who exhibit the idea of courage, of strength, of positivity, of doing things in a way that can mitigate things without the idea of violence and force, but who also are willing to defend themselves. Allow yourself simply, again, to continue to be living examples and take the actions necessary to demonstrate to others that they do not have to operate out of fear, that they do not have to operate out of control and lack. It's up to you. It's your planet. We can only go so far in aiding and assisting you. You have to make the decisions that work for everyone in the most harmonious way and help those who live in fear to understand there is another way. We have to leave most of that up to you to use the tools we have shared with you in ways that can be of assistance and service to all. It's your planet.
Thank you, Bashar. We really appreciate your perspective and all that you share with us.
It is always our passion and our pleasure and our gratitude and appreciation for allowing these exchanges to occur. Depending upon what you do with this information will make all the difference in all the different versions of Earth that you choose to experience as you move forward on your evolutionary path. And in that light, we now invite you to participate in the meditation exercise. So allow yourselves, once again, to relax, to let go of the cares of the day, to be in the here and the now as best as you possibly can be without worrying whether or not you're in the here and now. Just allow yourself to let go to the best you can. Deep breathing will help. Allow yourselves to relax and allow whatever accompaniment visually or musically you wish to have to flow along with you and just float easily and comfortably on the stream of consciousness that you are. And allow yourself to see the triad relationship between the conscious mind, the subconscious mind, and the unconscious mind of your physical being. As the unconscious mind passes information like handing it off on a silver platter to the subconscious mind, who then may look at what's there and may pick and choose certain things referring to the physical conscious mind and saying, well, this belief system won't necessarily allow this person to absorb this information from the unconscious mind this way, but perhaps if I turn it around a little bit, perhaps if I make it move over here, perhaps it will then be the key that fits the lock in the physically conscious mind, And so by having rearranged things according to what may work better for the conscious mind for now, maybe even removing some of those items from the silver platter, passing along that silver platter to the conscious mind, who then may have a slight dawning or an inspiration or a realization or a thought or a synchronicity that makes them face a certain idea or brings up their belief within them as they're acting on their passion, the belief that's out of alignment with them, and gets them to ponder and take that pause and take that moment and look at the information that has been delivered by the subconscious in ways that will allow the physical mind to work with it comfortably. Now, there may be some things that come across as a little challenging, and that's all right. And the physical mind can take those things and rearrange them again on the silver platter and say, well, this will work for me, and this feels like fun, and I think I can look at it this way, and I think I'm willing to explore my negative beliefs and fear-based beliefs in this way, and then hand that silver platter back to the subconscious mind and let it work on it, whether in dream state or whether physically awake or whether in meditations, doesn't matter. But then the subconscious mind can say, oh, all right, well, the physical mind accepted this one in this way and this one in this way, so I'll leave those where they are. And it maybe rearrange a few other things and maybe open some doorways here and doorways there that might be more palatable to the physical mind. And I will hand the silver platter back up to the unconscious mind to see if the unconscious has any new information it would like to put on that platter. And it will hand it back to the subconscious mind and say, oh, well, there's some new things here, new configurations to look at. And I will check with the belief systems and see what the physical mind is willing to handle, willing to look at, willing to process, willing to admit, willing to allow, willing to accept about itself. And I will make maybe a few minor arrangements this time, not as many as before, because now the physical mind is willing to look at these things and willing to accept synchronicity into its life to give it the information that it needs. And I will hand the silver platter back to the physical mind, and it may say, oh, well, that's delightful, or I'm not so sure about this yet, or maybe I will turn this one this way, but this one is perfectly fine, and that one is perfectly fine. And I will hand that back to the subconscious and back to the unconscious and back to the subconscious and back to the conscious. And that process will continue to spring back and forth in whatever way, shape, or form will allow the belief systems to slowly or quickly or whatever way is comfortable for the challenges that the conscious mind faces to be dealt with by the subconscious mind in a way that works for the conscious mind and in a way that allows the unconscious mind to add more information when necessary, when the timing is correct, and pass it again through the subconscious mind that will detail it and will alter it and will adapt it to what the belief system says the physical mind can handle, and then pass it along again to the conscious mind to consider it and allow oneself to work with it. And again, the subconscious mind will help along by doing things in the dreamscape that may be easier for the conscious mind to deal with, and process things in the dream that may prevent the conscious mind from having to experience certain things in physical reality, whatever is the path of least resistance that still allows the conscious mind to accept the theme of exploration that the higher mind chose when it became the physical mind, to explore, to know itself from this new perspective and this new point of view in all that is, and allow that physical mind to become honed and polished and aligned in a way that is beautiful and harmonious and brilliant and shiny and strong and powerful and loving. All these things work together and work with the belief system in this way so that you have all these mechanisms within you working for you. So know that they are there, and know that all the information you need is being handed to you on a silver platter all the time, or a golden one or a crystal one, whatever substance you wish, doesn't matter. You invent your own with your imagination, because you're talking to the higher mind through all of this process anyway, through this triad structure. This is how you're communicating with the higher mind, allowing the unconscious, subconscious, and conscious mind to work together with the belief systems in a more harmonious way so that you can experience a life of expanded consciousness, a life of creativity, a life of joy, and experience the truth of who you really are as an aspect and a reflection of all that is, in this clever way of knowing yourself, this unique way of experiencing yourself, to add to the experience of what and who you are as an aspect of all that is. So allow yourselves to relax into this process and let it work for you. Keep breathing through it. Allow your life to open and expand, and allow synchronicity to present to you ways in which you can allow the subconscious and unconscious to work for you more efficiently by being willing to explore your own belief systems, letting go of those ones that are fear-based and negative, and opening up into the opportunities available to you to receive and download more inspiration and more information every moment and every day in your life, so that you can move forward as a being of light in love and in joy and in peace. Allow yourself now to just relax into this, breathe into it, absorb it and enjoy it. Make it your own. Have fun with it. Play with it. Meditate on it. Act it out however you wish. Ground it in your physical world, and it will serve you. Breathe into it and breathe it out. Breathe into it and breathe it out. Breathe into it and breathe it out. Float freely in the knowledge that this mechanism is working for you in the direction of your joy, and flow through your life with ease and gratitude and appreciation and love. Be at peace and welcome home. Our unconditional love to you all. Good day.